Hi, this is Dan Curtis with Nomad Capitalist, and today we are speaking with noted outside the box thinker and the CEO of the Atlas Society, JAG, Jennifer Grossman. Welcome, Jag.
It is great to be here. I am a big fan of Nomad Capitalists, so it's quite the honor.
So happy to hear it. We're going to jump right in. You are the CEO of the Atlas Society, and from what I understand, the Atlas Society is committed to promoting the, I'm going to mispronounce her name, Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism. Tell us what that means in real world terms.
Sure. So Ayn Rand was, in some ways, a nomad capitalist herself. She was born in Russia in 1905. When she was 12, she and her little sister witnessed the Bolshevik revolution from the window of their apartment. Her father had been a pharmacist, so of course the communists came and expropriated their property. And she eventually escaped to the United States when she was 12. She went on to write some truly epic novels, Atlas Shrugged, which has inspired the name of the Atlas Society, The Fountainhead, and others, and then developed a philosophy which she called objectivism, which essentially presented a perspective of man as a heroic being with his happiness as pursuing his happiness as his highest moral purpose, and was also very much based in objective reality, rejecting the supernatural, relying on reason to figure things out rather than faith, and then also, of course, a very revolutionary moral viewpoint of rational, ethical self-interest as opposed to altruism.
I've noticed that Rand's work seems to still resonate today, particularly with a certain set of Republican lawmakers, tech people, a lot of entrepreneurs. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think in one sense, and I'm not sure. I wish it resonated more with some of the Republican lawmakers. But certainly, when we look at, we have a gala every fall. We have had one for the past 6 years. We recently honored Michael Saylor, who is the executive chairman of MicroStrategy. He's a Bitcoin maximalist. He's put his money where his mouth is, and is really presenting a vision of Bitcoin in a way very much in sync with the nomad capitalist ethic, because it's about taking your property, your energy, your value, your ideas, wherever you are, beyond the reach of government to inflate it or to expropriate it. And whether it's been Michael Saylor or Peter Thiel or Lululemon founder Chip Wilson, all of them were profoundly inspired by Ayn Rand. And part of it is that she, in her novels, she presented entrepreneurs as heroic beings. They were not, as in so much of literature, kind of maligned as greedy villains, and she just also presented a view of liberty in, I think, spiritual terms. Previously, a lot of economic thinkers had presented a material case for liberty and for individualism. And I think Ayn Rand reimagined that in a way that brought romance to the case for liberty.
Well, I've heard the CEO of Uber actually uses the Fountainhead as his Twitter avatar, so I know it's still
Travis
resonating.
Kalanick. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. It feels like what you're describing is kind of a laissez-faire attitude towards not just capitalism, but almost government in general. How closely aligned are you with a libertarian mindset? Is that something different, or is that something that you share?
Well, I think that there is a commonality insofar as Ayn Rand advocated the separation of the economy and the state, um, for the same reasons and in the same way as the separation of church and state. Uh, of course, though, libertarianism is very broad and can encompass, even anarcho libertarians. And Ayn Rand was firm in believing that there is a reason for government. She was not in favor of anarchy. She believed that we needed a government to protect individual rights, specifically a military to defend against foreign threat, a police force to protect against criminals and thugs, and some kind of legal system to be able to adjudicate differences that may arise. Of course, that's a quite more modest vision of government than the kind of bloated bureaucracies that we now have to contend with. And I think the other thing that would maybe differentiate Ayn Rand from some libertarians is that she really presented a moral vision. So it wasn't just do it, the libertarian motto of don't hurt people and don't take their stuff. Well, that's good, but I think going beyond that to really emphasize the importance of leading a virtuous life. And, rather than just saying, okay, yeah, we shouldn't have government getting involved in whether or not people are going to take drugs or drink or anything like that. But that doesn't mean that they should be celebrated. And in fact, that we should be encouraging and modeling behaviors that are conducive to leading a rational, productive, long, and healthy life. So I think that there are some differences, and Ayn Rand, although she was quite critical of libertarians in the day, um, many, if not most, libertarians will trace their introduction to libertarianism back
Sure.
to reading Ayn Rand.
And I find it interesting that she separated that morality from religion, which is you don't see that very often, especially in our political system.
Right. Well, she talked about religion as a primitive form of philosophy, because I think we have always been searching for meaning, having big questions. Why am I here? How do I know? What should I do? What is right and what is wrong? And Ayn Rand was revolutionary insofar as she said, we can base our morality around what it means to be human and what is conducive to flourishing as humans, and we need to rely on reason. We need the freedom to think, we need the freedom to act, to work, and we need the freedom to be able to retain the yield of our labor, which is our property.
So how do you or how are you trying to translate these ideals through your society? How does that society work in kind of a real world scenario?
Sure. Well, the trustees of the Atlas Society recruited me, going on 7 years now. And it's been around for a long time, over 30 years. But it was kind of catering to people who are already in the vein of objectivism. So preaching to the choir.
Oh,
And
big fan.
I've been a huge Ayn Rand fan for my entire adult life, always have had Ayn Rand as a license plate. And I noticed that I was going from, 20 years ago, maybe getting some dirty looks, or, people recognized what that license plate meant, to just getting blank stares. So, it's part of the life cycle of any author, but the fact that people really have no idea who Ayn Rand is anymore, I thought that provided an opportunity to reintroduce her and her work and her ideas on terms that we felt were more appropriate to her accomplishments and to her significance. And also that I looked out at the marketplace of think tanks. I actually used to work at the Cato Institute over 20 years ago. And I noticed a couple of things that after not being in that space for a long time, that they had not taken advantage of a lot of the disruptive innovations in how to transact ideas. And of course, that's what think tanks should be largely doing, is transacting ideas. Part of that is taking advantage of new technology and also taking advantage of social media. So that was one of the first things we do. So our social media accounts, we put out, 40, 50 memes a week. Each one gets on average 25,000 shares, comments, likes. We produce animated videos. I saw that celebrities were using this kind of whiteboard animation, draw my life video to tell their stories. So I said, well, hey, what if we were to adapt this to tell Ayn Rand's story in a speed ramped animated video in 4 minutes? And then I took that and I went and adapted it to characters from her books, to concepts like gratitude and envy and victimhood, to places like Venezuela and Hong Kong, and Cuba, and to real life heroes today, people like Chip Wilson and Peter Diamandis. So those are some of the things we do. We are also have many opportunities to meet with our faculty. We've assembled some of the top of their game academics, from Stephen Hicks to Richard Salzman, of course, our founder, David Kelly, Jason Hill, Rob Trasinski, and they host weekly webinars, Morals and Markets, Atlas Intellectuals. We're a big presence on Clubhouse. And next year, I'm happy to say we're going to be hosting our first annual student conference in Tennessee. So those are some of the ways that people can engage with us.
Yeah, and it sounds like, between the live events and the social media, you're in a position to influence policy even. That's a
Yeah, I mean,
lofty goal.
we're not so much focused on particular policy debates. We don't do any lobbying. We are pretty focused on philosophy and making it accessible to a younger audience. But you are correct. I mean, that does have downstream implications. People talk about
Sure.
politics as being downstream from culture, but culture is downstream from philosophy. And so we are trying to advance Ayn Rand's ideas for objectivist philosophy in ways that are accessible, that are fun, and that can be engaged with by a wide audience, not just in the United States, but increasingly overseas. And that's something that we started with creating a sister organization, Sociedad Atlas, that my colleague Antonella Marti leads, that is essentially duplicating all of the Atlas Society's activities in Spanish. But then we had just, you and I spoken earlier about the translations that we have in Georgian, but we have translations in over a dozen languages. And it's been quite a revelation to discover that there are actually huge markets for our content in places that we would never have thought of, like many of the videos that we do in English that get 1 million views in the United States get over 8 million views in the Middle East, in the Arabic speaking world. So Middle East, Latin America, Brazil, and India are all huge and emerging markets for us.
Well, if you're translating into Georgian, you're going pretty deep. I mean, there's only three
Yeah.
and a half, 4 million Georgians in the world, I think. So, yeah, that's fairly impressive.
Well, we
It,
benefit from actually having an existing community of objectivists in Georgia. And so, we like to go where the eyeballs are, but also where there's a receptive audience that is willing to just continue down that journey for advanced
yeah,
engagement.
absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like a very altruistic mission, and like no.
Nope.
Okay, well, please
So
tell me how I'm wrong.
okay, all right. Well, so, but of course, it is a question of terms. A lot of times when people think of altruism or just use it in common parlance, it means, oh, look, we're seeking to help other people. We want to do something that's generous. Of course, altruism as a term was coined by the philosopher Auguste Comte. Originally, or literally, means otherism. And so it is a kind of a self-sacrificing uh, approach to ethics. And it is the complete polar opposite of the rationally self-interested ethic that we're trying to promote at the Atlas Society. Now, that said, our founder, David Kelly, has done a lot of work on benevolence as a self-interested virtue. It's an entrepreneurial openness to other people, viewing them, you know, as potential trading partners, as potential friends, as potential people that we might want to do business with. And so, but I do also think that there is an aspect, I certainly feel this way. I do think that a lot of our donors, because we are a nonprofit, feel this way, that uh, each of us has derived such tremendous value from Ayn Rand that we kind of almost owe a debt of gratitude to her. And so she worked so hard to create this beautiful art, these beautiful works of fiction, and her philosophy. And so, as a matter of justice, we want to help her uh, achieve that goal that she had during her lifetime by continuing to find innovative modern ways to spread that. And selfishly, we want to see America continue. We want to see other countries become freer and have the rule of law and become less corrupt. And so, by spreading this philosophy and encouraging people to read her fiction, we're helping to encourage the creation of the kind of world in which we want to live.
Well, and that brings me to my last question, which is how optimistic are you about that world?
Well, it's funny that you should ask because I just did an interview today with my good friend Marian Tupy on his book Super Abundance. And so when I think you look at the large and long-term scope of things, we are living in an age where uh, we are creating more resources at a faster pace than we are actually growing the population. And everything is becoming more abundant and becoming cheaper, particularly when measured in terms of the amount of time that each of us as individuals need to work in order um, to buy an hour of light or to buy a pound of sugar or to buy um, uh, a car or what have you. But there are also forces that are threatening that continued superabundance, that continued progress. And among those are, of course, um, regulation, government overreach, bureaucracy, and we've been seeing that for the past 2 years, how quickly things can change from and politics of relative openness and to one of restriction and regulation, and the results of that chaos are all around us. So I'd say I'm pretty darn optimistic, and but I don't think that it is an automatic process. I don't think it's something that we can take for granted. And but I've also just been really heartened by how much the Atlas Society has grown, just even over the past 6 years, how much our budget has grown, how many people have joined the Atlas Society, are supporting the Atlas Society. And if that is any indication of where we're going, then I think that the Atlas Society will at least be in a good place to continue to help feed a culture where achievement, productivity, individualism, and reason are at least have a fighting chance, if not
Okay.
in the ascendancy, and that will bode optimistically for a freer culture and a freer society.
Well, let's hope we're moving in the right direction at least. It has been a fascinating look into the society and your role in it. I greatly appreciate the time. Would you tell us where we can find you online, or where we can find some of your memes?
Well, I'd say first and foremost, go and follow the Atlas Society on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on YouTube, and go to atlassociety.org. Sign up for a newsletter. That's where we're going to send you every week new events, our latest videos, and articles and in-person events as well. And of course, you can find me. I'm Jen Angie Grossman on Instagram and also on Twitter.
I'll follow you myself. Thank you for the time, Jag. I greatly appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for the work you do.
Thank you.